So this meeting that we're having today is a webinar on impact assessment. It's going to be slightly different from the meetings that we normally have that talk about an issue. Usually we meet with the gender liaisons and talk about an issue that has to do with gender equality, that has to do with empowerment. This is going to be slightly different in that we are going to be looking at impact assessment, which is something that cuts across the board for all of our programs, but also that is important for us in our projects to know about impact assessment and look at impact assessment as part of your organizational profile and what it is that you want to actually achieve. So welcome and thank you very much. And before we go into the webinar, I would like to look at just a second. I would like to go into the agenda so that we can all see what it is that we are going to be discussing. So we have the welcome and the introductions for about 5 minutes. Then we'll do the introduction to impact assessment. Then we will link monitoring and evaluation to impact, look at the methods of impact assessment, and then look at using impact results. Once we have done this, those times are approximate, but we would like to have about 15 minutes for questions and for discussion. I hope everybody was able to look through the questions that we sent for the discussion and that you are able to participate in that discussion. And then we shall do a wrap up for about 3 minutes. So once more, let me say good afternoon, good evening, or good morning to you all, wherever you are, and welcome to this webinar. We are going to be having a brief introduction, maybe just one member from each organization. And I want to start with Yapo. Is Yapo present? Not yet. REAP, is anybody present from REAP? No. Plavio?
Good morning, good evening. I hope you guys are okay. It has been a long time. We have not been meeting. And thank you so much, Karen and Baboshia, for organizing this meeting. It is worth. My name is Alok Jacob, Program Manager, Plavi, Uganda. And I have a colleague who I also wanted him to attend today. He can introduce himself.
Okay.
Hello. Yes, I'm Ronald Ricky Uchen. I have this meeting with you as a project officer from Plavi, Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. It's good to make your acquaintance. You're welcome to this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move to Bo. Is anybody from Botswana Open University here?
Good evening, good morning. This is Tendani. I'm the monitoring and evaluation liaison person from Botswana Open University. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tendani. I hope your colleagues are going to join you.
Yes, I believe so. We engaged earlier on.
Okay.
My guess is they'll be joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Tendi. Maba here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Maba. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Great. Commerce, is Commerce present? No, not from my list. Okay. SSJ. I thought I saw Emily. Doreen.
Yes, good morning and good evening from Solomon Islands. Hello to you all.
Welcome so much, Doreen. Welcome from the Solomon Islands.
Thank you.
Okay. Who do we have from SSJ? Okay. Then I have the pleasure to introduce a new partner, Unique Foundation. Unique Foundation.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Martin Gomez, from Unique Foundation, The Gambia. Thank you.
Welcome very much. Unique Foundation is from the Gambia, and they have just joined this family of call at Girls Inspire. And we welcome you very much. This is something that we like to do. We try to do it every 2 months, but as Jacob pointed out, it's been quite a while since we had a meeting. And so I welcome you to this community, and you will learn a lot from the other members. And I hope that we will also learn a lot from you. Thank you, everybody. Now, before I move into the impact assessment, Bavoshia, you'd like to have any issues you'd like to raise? And to say hello.
Hello. Good morning. I'm Bavoshia. I'm the program assistant for this initiative at COLE. I don't think there's any issue here, but I would like to, I think, point out again, I sent an email yesterday evening for us about our social media platform. So please follow us, like, subscribe. We want to create a bit of buzz, and tag us in any of the posts that you make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bavoshia. And I think we will soon try to have maybe some sort of a webinar again on using social media, posting to social media, where we can all learn together, so that the wonderful things that you're doing in each of your initiatives, we need to know about them, the world needs to know about them. And it would be great if we have a very vibrant presence on social media. So thank you very much. Let's just move into the introduction to impact assessment. And we are looking at impact assessment as something that is an essential aspect of impact evaluation. And when we are looking at impacts, we are looking at anything that comes out from an intervention. The OECD and DAC describe this as anything that can be positive, it can be negative, it can be something that you intended as a program, or it may also be unintended. It can be direct or indirect, it can be primary or secondary. These are effects that are produced by an intervention. So it means that when you set out as a program or as a project to do something, you have your aims and your objectives. And these aims and objectives are usually well thought out at the beginning of an intervention. But then you find that there are certain things that come up because we are dealing with human beings. There are certain things that come up, and you find that maybe change is quicker than you expected. Maybe positive effects are quicker than you expected. Or it could be the opposite, that change is slow to come, that people are resistant to some of the things that we are trying to do. But anything that we can directly say has been caused by that intervention, then we talk about it as an impact. And impact evaluation attributes change to an intervention. In other words, when we do an intervention, if you look at that diagram at the bottom, if we have an intervention, we expect to see a result. That result is the beginning of impact, because if I teach somebody how to read, for example, the result is that they are able to read a page of script. But then that is not the end of it. What change happens then in their lives because they are able to read? Are they now able to understand information that they get on paper? Are they able to read a newspaper? And how does it change their life? So the idea here of assessing the impact is to understand what are we attributing to the intervention. Moving on to the next slide. If we look at what are we looking at in terms of impact assessment, we are trying to answer certain key questions. We're trying to look at what kind of data we need. We're trying to look at the methods that are used to obtain that data and the results that then we shall be able to experience. So what does our data mean for the education, livelihood, and empowerment outcomes for women and girls and persons with disabilities? These are our targets. And so let's look at each of these four boxes and try to look at then what exactly are we doing in impact assessment. In the first slide, I would like us to look at who conducts impact assessment. Who exactly is supposed to do it? Is this supposed to be done by somebody that is external to the project, or is it supposed to be done by somebody that is internal? And the answer is both. Internally, as an organization, you have a project team. For Girls Inspire, we always say you have a project manager, you have a gender liaison, you have a communications liaison, you have somebody in charge of monitoring and evaluation. These people are the core project team that then are always asking themselves, what is it that we are doing? Where are we headed to? Is it making any difference? But impact assessment can also be done by participants. You have an intervention that is conducted with people, with stakeholders, with participants. These people also give you feedback and say, this is working well or this is not working well. So your participants, your primary, the women and girls in your program, and then the local stakeholders in the community that you meet and in the community that you talk to, these also are the people that tell you whether interventions are leading to change or they're just leading to results. Then we have the project managers who then are in charge of the entire project team, who are leading the direction in which this project is going. And they also conduct impact assessment. When a gender liaison goes out into the community, they report back to the program manager, and the program manager has something to say about an intervention or an activity that was conducted. Now, externally to your organizations, we also are conducting impact assessment. From the information that comes from the organization, there are several people that are interested in who it is that is conducting or what impact is being had in the community. When you're partnering with an organization, for example, in this case, when you're partnering with CALL is interested to know, what difference is the program making? Is this difference important? Is this difference going to lead to better lives and livelihoods of the people that are having an intervention done? Boards of governors are also interested in seeing what it is that is going on. Many of your projects have boards of governors. Some of you are in institutions that report to a ministry, report to a university council. These people are interested in knowing what is going on in your projects and whether they're making a difference. Since CALL is government founded, it's an intergovernmental foundation, our governments are also interested in knowing what is going on in my country, what are the interventions that are being done, and how is it that they are making a difference to my people according to the priorities that our government has set for development. And other development partners are interested. An organization like the UN or UNESCO or the Commonwealth Foundation may be interested to know what is it that the Commonwealth of Learning is doing and who is it working with. So it looks and sees these are the projects that are being conducted in various countries. And so the impact assessment that is both internal and external can be said to be cyclical. We're doing it internally, we're doing it externally, but both of them are in a continuous cycle. Now, we need to be able to understand how we are impacting on the people that we are dealing with. Now, if you look at this diagram, this is the Girls Inspire impact results, 6 months results from July to December 2022. Now, this information here in red You look at the numbers, we are saying we have 7,765 women and girls who have completed courses related to labor market needs. Or we are saying that we have 643 government officers trained. These figures are data, and monitoring always begins with data. And there needs to be a data strategy, meaning that we are looking at what are our targets. If for the year we say that we want to train 10,000 women and girls in courses linked to labor market, then we say that this data is important for us each and every month so that we know that we are actually meeting that target. So the outputs or the numbers that we have are set against the targets. But these numbers are not enough. If we say that we needed to reach 10,000 women and girls in 1 year, that is why it is important to say that these are 6 months results, so that we are saying that within 6 months, we have met a target, we have exceeded our target, because within 6 months, we would have reached about 5,000, but we have reached 7,000. So we are saying that we have exceeded the targets. It means that the implementation is going on in a timely manner. And we are likely to meet the target of 10,000 by the time we have reached the end of the year. So the implementation that is timely is an implementation that helps us to reach the target within the set time. Then the third question in terms of the data strategy is, are we reaching the right people? Are we actually making a difference to the right people? If you look at the numbers here, we are saying that these are 7,765 women and girls, 5,102 learners, government officers, partnerships with labor market. And when you go back into the Girls Inspire strategy and your results-based framework, these are exactly the people that we say we are reaching. So we are actually reaching the right people. The partners are working to help us to reach the right people in a timely manner. So this data that we have helps us to answer evaluation questions. And so impact assessment always begins with data, and monitoring that we are doing that is conducted during project implementation helps us then to understand our information after the project implementation has been completed. So the data strategy is the beginning, but the data strategy is not the end of it. When we look at impact assessment, we do impact assessment through different methods. And the first one is the theory of change. The other one is pre and post surveys, the tracer studies, and the community scorecard. I'd like to go into each one of these a little bit briefly, but before I do, I'd like to pause and ask if there is any question on what has been presented so far. If there is, you can raise a hand or you can unmute and ask the question.
Maybe the question will come later. We'll first move on.
Okay, Jacob will have a question later. Anybody else? All right, great. Let's just move on to the methods of impact assessment. Remember, we are saying that evaluation is at the end. When you get to the end of your project, you will go back and evaluate. But unless you are assessing your project as you're moving along, then it becomes a little bit difficult to conduct evaluation because, first of all, we will not have the data. We will not have the information. So what are the methods of impact assessment? The first one I have mentioned is the theory of change. And this is the Girls Inspire theory of change, or we also call it the logic model. Each of you, when you are preparing your proposals the first time for the Commonwealth of Learning, you each had to put in your project proposal template a theory of change. In other words, your theory of change shows us where do you think there is a problem or an issue, and where is it that you want to reach to. So in brief, if we look at the theory of change of Girls Inspire, we have seen this quite a number of times, so I will not dwell on it very long. We want to make two main impacts, which is improving learning outcomes, including competencies for employment, entrepreneurship, and promoting gender equality. And then we also want to improve lives and livelihoods, especially of marginalized people. And for marginalized people in Girls Inspire, we're specifically referring to women and girls and persons with disabilities. And so for the theory of change, we try to say, what are going to be our long-term outcomes? What are going to be our short-term outcomes? And what are going to be our outputs? Our outputs are the various activities, reaching the communities, training the women and girls in human rights, training them in entrepreneurship, training them in skills, establishing partnerships with labor markets. All of these outputs are intended to lead us into the final impacts. And so a theory of change is a partner's or an organization's first area of assessment, so that if we are following our theory of change and saying that this is where as an organization we want to go, then it means that every activity you undertake is sure to get you to your impact. Secondly, we talk about pre and post surveys. And the idea of pre and post surveys is in that small cartoon there, which says that garbage in, garbage out. Your analysis is as good as your data. In other words, if we have adequate data, if we have correct data at the beginning of everything that we are doing, it means that at the end of it, we are able to get correct data on the changes that we have been able to effect. And we have various methods of pre and post surveys. One of these is a household survey. For every organization, we have to do a baseline, and our baselines are done in the household. We ask questions about empowerment. We ask questions about knowledge, skills, and attitudes that have to do with education, that have to do with skills, that have to do with decision-making. Now, if you are operating in an area, and after a year, you're able to go back and conduct that household survey and ask, has there been any change in decision-making in this family? Has there been any change in attitudes towards education for women and girls, in return to school, in adolescent pregnancy? Then you are able to assess that we have made a difference. In the same way, we have focus group discussions. When we are having trainings, we have key informant interviews. We have training questionnaires. Every time you have a training, we tell you, please do a small survey at the beginning of training. Find out if we are training on human rights, what do the women and girls know about human rights? What do they know about the protective legislations? What do they know about reporting when there are violations? And then at the end of training, also issue the same questionnaire and find out, do they now know, and what is it that they actually know? Community feedback, asking questions in the general community. After you have held a sensitization, did you know about this topic that we have just trained you on? How is it going to change the way you feel? How is it going to change the way you act? How is it going to change your behavior towards women and girls, towards empowerment? So the pre and post surveys is the second method of impact assessment. Then thirdly, we talk about tracer studies. And tracer studies are a little bit more long-term. And tracer studies answer several questions. First of all, how many of our stakeholders, whether in our communities, our local government authorities, whether the people who are other funders of our projects, how are they truly experiencing the outcomes? Secondly, we ask, how much are our participants' lives truly improving? If we have had an intervention, if we have taught skills, let's say we have taught bead making to a group of women, are their lives truly improving because of that intervention? If we have taught them about human rights, what difference has it made in their lives afterwards in terms of these human rights? And then how durable and sustainable is change? Yes, we have trained. Yes, we have sensitized. Yes, we have formed a club for men or for boys. Is this change durable and is it sustainable? Whatever it is that we are trying to achieve. So tracer studies answer the question, after a while, what is it that we are making a difference in? And is this difference being felt by different people, our stakeholders, our participants, our communities? Then the fourth one, again, is a tool that we have also discussed in a previous workshop that we had, or previous meeting that we had. And the community scorecard is a tool that helps the communities assess and improve community response to issues, including rights violations. Now, we try to emphasize that the communities are the ones that ensure that when we are training women and girls, then there is a place where they find that even the community is receptive to the changes that they are undergoing. If a community is saying that there are certain occupations that women and girls may not be going into, and you are able to train these women and girls, for example, in motorcycle repair, and you're able to train and they're able to come into the community. If the community has not been sensitized on the fact that women and girls can do the same jobs that men and boys do, then they will not be able to fit in, and they may face violations or they may face harassment. But the community scorecard helps us in order to be able to say that we have training that we are doing. We are also training or sensitizing the community. How is it that these two are interacting? Now, what a community scorecard does is that it strengthens the community voice. It helps us to identify potential gaps in services or in the products that the community has available in order to improve their lives. And then it monitors a community group's functioning and coordination with agencies. Agencies here being, for example, the partner that we have in each country, or an agency being a child protection service or a women's protection service, the legal authorities, the police, these are all agencies. So if we look at the sample that has been provided, a community scorecard is usually something that you train the community in, and you have a small group of people who are in charge of monitoring the community scorecard and filling it out. Now, if we look at the diagram on the left, this is a sample of a provider self-evaluation scorecard from a primary school in Uganda. Now, it is a little bit small, but I hope we can be able to see it. If we look at the tool that is on the left, the scorecard from a primary school in Uganda, this is a community keeping score of different reasons why girls and women and children are not attending school regularly. So they talk about the school. Is it, first of all, accessible by pupils? And it's given a score of 4 because most students come from the municipality, they're able to access the school. Is it accessible by teachers? So the school is accessible on a 4 level by pupils, but only on a 2 level by teachers. It's very far, teachers don't get their salaries in time, the transport is difficult and expensive. This is assuming that perhaps there is nowhere near the school for the teachers to stay in. Where are the pupils performing well? And the community says, no, there is overcrowding of classes, education is not a priority, there is a lot of absenteeism. So this scorecard is kept by the community. Over time, we will want to see that those aspects which are very low, are they being improved? For example, is accommodation being built for teachers that is near the school? Are we getting teachers trained from the local community and then being posted to the primary school so that the children don't lose out on their education? Now, sometimes communities do not necessarily, they are not, like if you look at this scorecard, the community is able to fill it in great detail. But if they are not, then sometimes the scoring process can use symbols. Like this is one that came from the Gambia. And the community has been taught that when the criteria is very bad, use a face that is completely frowning. When it is bad, not really frowning. When it is just okay, straight ahead, good, and then very good. So rather than having them write out, because sometimes we work with low literacy communities, then they can draw this facial expression. And as a project, you are able then to tell what it means and to be able to help the community to assess it. So this scorecard then is always shared with agencies that are able to then make an intervention, because we're dealing with issues, for example, schooling. Any one of us as partners cannot change the schooling system, cannot build houses for teachers. But if these are things that the community is raising, then we can discuss them with these agencies. If there is gender-based violence in a community and the reports are being made to the agencies and nothing is being done, the scorecard helps us to see if there is an intervention of training police, of training social workers, of training the departments in government that are connected to prevention of GBV or dealing with cases of GBV. After that intervention, does the scorecard change? Then now we talk about, excuse me, using of impact results. You've done your assessment. Your impact results, what are they for? They're for use, they're supposed to be used for three main things. One of them is planning for your organizational strategic direction. We conduct activities every year. How are these activities changing our strategic direction in terms of what we see is working, what we see is not working, and what is making an actual change? So it helps us to rethink our outputs, which is our activities, in order to have better outcomes. Those are our results and our impact. And it also helps us to build a case for support and funding, so that if we are looking for extra support, if we are looking for funding, whether with call or outside of call, we have the exact kind of support that is needed, where an organization is able to say, perhaps we are not very good in terms of looking at our results. What support can you give us? What training can you give us in order to be able to do this? So for support, for funding, whether with different organizations, whether with your local government organizations, if you have impact results that show what you're doing, then you're able to make a better case for support and for funding. So the idea here is in the conclusion at the bottom, that the determinative measure of an evaluation is how that evaluation informs subsequent action. In other words, we have evaluated, we have assessed what action is going to come out of this. And my emphasis before we go into the questions and discussion is that we really need to think about our strategic direction. We really need to think about the activities that we are doing and trying to see that at the end of the year, do these activities lead us to making change in the lives of women and girls? So that we have data, yes, that says we planned to, maybe an organization says, we planned to reach 1,500 women and girls. Yes, we met those women and girls, but then we ask ourselves, we go back and ask ourselves, how is it that this is part of our strategic direction as an organization? What is it that we have achieved? So we are going to go into the questions and discussion, and perhaps that will also help in terms of some of the questions that may arise from what I have presented. But before I go into that slide, if there is anything that perhaps I discussed and was not clear, or you would like to maybe have a question or ask a question on, is there anything, or in the chat, Bavosha, you can check for me? Okay, we assume that silence is, we are okay?
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yes, please. Okay, go ahead. Let me go back a little. Yes. Jacob, your voice was the one I heard first, so let's start with Jacob. Yes.
I am, you first take us to the scorecard.
Yes.
In most scenarios, when you notice that there is a problem with a particular school, and you being a partner in that area, it is not easy for you to approach the school, because sometimes maybe like the community might not see what you are seeing. A case in point, I have a primary school called Owinyo Primary School. Right now, the school does not have a toilet. The boys and girls are using the whole structure. with a blown off roof. And when you ask the A teacher will just pointedly tell you, what can I do? I can't do anything because the government is supporting. The community has failed to collect money to help in the reconstruction. Now, in this matter, you can't come in as an organization because you, of course, you may have the zeal to help, but because of the financial constraint, it is very hard here. Now, you see that because in this particular school, even up to now, I went there yesterday, even up to now, the enrollment is not to the maximum. Primary 7 class is still only 30, and they're expecting 60 up to now, because girls are fearing to share toilets with boys. That's what they are telling me. So how can organizations come in? This is a question for Lucas.
Thank you. Colleagues, would you like to answer and discuss Jacob's question?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I'm Wendy from RIP.
Yes, Wendy.
Just to discuss what Jacob has raised, I'm feeling, first of all, that is a health hazard. To not have a toilet, that is an emergency issue. So I'm feeling instead of just raising it with the school, you can pull in with other stakeholders, like the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, because if they're the ones who are supposed to support, they can be pushed by another ministry. So they can work together before maybe partners come in. Yeah. But if is it a private school or is it a government school? Because if the resources are expected from parents, okay. I would need clarity there also. Is it a private or a public school? So that now also, if it's a private school, the owner of the school is supposed to be held responsible. Yeah,
this is a public school.
This is a public school, yes.
So I'm thinking the ministry, a report can be made formally to the ministry and also to the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, so that something can be done quickly. There can be an outbreak if children don't use the toilet properly, which can also lead to so many students not even being in that school or the closure of that school. So I'm thinking, call in other stakeholders who can support here.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Anybody else would like to chip into that question?
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Yes, Solomon, go ahead.
Yes, if I'm to contribute, I will also suggest that the parents can as well play a part. That's the parents of the children who are attending those schools. Just like what the earlier speaker said, involving other stakeholders. I understand that some of them may have issues with, depending on the nature of the community, but because these are their children that are attending those schools, and they are part of the stakeholders, they can make a sort of contribution to ensure that there's a proper toileting system for their children. Because government will do, but I believe government can't do everything. And there are a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to getting government to do things most of the time. And depending on the urgency of the whole situation. So involving the parents, we go a whole long way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to redirect us to the slide that is on the screen. That is the community scorecard. And this can form a very powerful tool to help the community to work with the partners in terms of some of the serious issues, because what Jacob has raised has a very serious gender implication, because he said that the enrollment in class 7 is very low, is only half because the girls do not want to share a toilet with the boys. And we are talking about class 7 here. We are already talking about girls going into adolescence. So we're talking about menstrual hygiene. We're talking about issues of privacy becoming extremely important. And I can imagine then this toilet that they would have to share that perhaps is not even private enough or may not have the washing facilities, and it is being shared, one toilet being shared by a school of children. That is quite something. So if we look at this community scorecard as a tool that we can perhaps use here, in our activities, when we talk about sensitization of parents, sensitization of communities, perhaps this is where instead of confronting the school or you know, trying to push the school, because you don't have, even if you push the school and say you must have a toilet, you don't have the resources to provide that toilet. But what about if we sensitize the community on water, sanitation, and health and hygiene, as Wendy has suggested? This is a health hazard. Sensitize them on health issues, sensitize them on menstrual hygiene issues, sensitize them on the need for proper sanitation, and then try to build the community consensus that we need to be able to do something. The community scorecard will help you to, first of all, do an assessment of what is the situation at this time. And as Solomon has maybe briefly referred to, some communities, maybe this is not a problem for them. Your children just go out into the bush and do whatever you want to do, or you really don't need a toilet. And so if the practices within the community are more accepting of this kind of sanitation situation, it may be a little bit difficult. So we need to target then community sensitization that has to do with ensuring that the community understands the importance of health and hygiene, of menstrual health hygiene, of wash, and trying to then bring them to a place where now you have their buy-in, and then you get them to see, can they use the community scorecard to assess where they are at and who are the responsible agencies that are supposed to help them? Because we know also that sometimes if you get enough community buy-in, you find that the parents themselves will say, well, I know how to dig a hole, I can do the digging. Somebody else can say, I can bring this amount of material, I can do this, I can do that. So depending on the approach, the community may be able to take it up either with agencies or to do it for themselves. And it goes, I think, deeper to an issue of, if we only have half of the enrollment, what is the attitude towards education within the community? Are they seeing that it is not that important, so that my child is not going to school because there is not enough sanitation, but the parents are not pushing for the sanitation? So you can see that it is not just a simple thing of the toilet issue. At the end, it boils down to what is our value on education, what is our value then of taking our girls and our women and our children and ensuring that they have the education that they need. Thank you, Jacob, for raising that question. Would anybody else like us to recap on any of the other slides, or can we move into the discussion? Okay, let's move on. So here we are saying that when you're thinking about your organization, what kind of data is available on the impact of outputs? And this is not necessarily that we are not really asking you to say that in my organization I have this data and to give us all the facts and the figures. But we just want to know in general, maybe from let's have maybe 2 or 3 of you telling us what kind of data do you have that shows you that your outputs are having an impact. The discussion is open to everybody, not just to project managers.
Can I go first?
Yes, Wendy, thank you.
Okay, so at my organization, the number of farmers who adopted the skill that they learned in the demo farm to their farms. So that is informing us of something.
Okay, So you
Yeah.
have data that is available on farmers that were trained and that
Yes.
adopted, that not just trained, because training is one thing. We train many people, but do they actually take it up? So you have data that is not just on the training, but data on those who have adopted the skills that they were trained on in terms of farming.
To their compounds now, to their homes.
Okay, thank you very much. How do you think that this will inform your impact?
It informs us on how many people learned the skill and are actually putting it to practice. Because that was like our sustainability for the project. So they're also supposed to they were supposed to learn the skill, and then it was supposed to also help with coming up with IGAs. So they were supposed to sell some of the farm produce. So those who have adopted, chances are high that they will sell. Rather, it's an assumption that they will sell like it is supposed to. So we are waiting for harvest season to just see if they will do the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I asked you that question because we want to say that this data is available. We have trained maybe 300 farmers. 200 of them have taken up the practices, but then our impact will be assessed on whether we can bring this to fruition where they're actually able to sell their products, because then selling their products takes it back to the person saying that this training was actually useful to me because I've been able to sell my product and now I can get an income from it. So when my livelihood is improved, that to me as a farmer who has been trained is an impact. Then I can report back to the project, and the project is able to see directly the data that we said on 300 farmers trained, 200 took it up, and this number are able to get a profit. That is then data that is available on the impact of outputs. Thank you very much, Wendy. Could we have another example?
Yes, Dr. Karen.
Yes, Salim, welcome. You were not here during introduction. Yes.
Yeah, we came a little bit late, but during the last person who was introducing the.
Oh, okay. Sorry for overlooking you.
It's okay. So for us, what is the data available to showcase the impact that we are creating is the number of girls and women who have secured employment opportunities, internship, and apprenticeship. So we have a number of girls who are now currently working as interns in some industries and local local businesses around their wards. So to us, this is a success towards the outputs that we were looking for. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a number of girls who are now practicing what they have learned from the training that we have been providing them over the period of almost 3 months. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Could you give us an example of some of the industries in which they are interns?
Yeah, there is a bakery. They are helping with bakery. They are also working in a restaurant. They make some bites. But we have another girls who are working in the beauty salon. They are plaiting hair and doing makeups and manicures and pedicures for the nails. So these are a few examples of girls, but also we have few girls who are now practicing agriculture, sustainable agriculture practices. They are selling the vegetables. So for us, it's a success because before the training, they were not even touching anything regarding the farming. But after the training, they're now able to have the products and they are selling the vegetables.
Okay, thank you very much, Salim. Again, you have the data that is available on the women and girls trained, and then you have data that is available on those who are then able to get into internships, get into employment, get into apprenticeships. Now, when we are now going to go back and say that we are measuring the impact, again, what we measure is not just the number in employment or in internship, but the difference that it is making in their lives. Because again, Salim has mentioned agriculture and said that these are people who never used to farm and now are farming and are able to make a livelihood out of that farming. So these kind of impacts are what we are looking at from the data, and so that the reporting looks more on the change that it has, that the intervention has made in somebody's life, and that is what we report on. Thank you very much. I want to ask one more person to maybe give us an example.
Yes.
Thank you, Solomon. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. For our own end, we look at so many things in the area of the number of students who are at risk of dropping out of school, because part of what our program is designed to do is to prevent those who are at risk of dropping out, especially in the area of due to they are underperforming with their academic achievements. So we look at number of students who have partake in our programs that were at risk of dropping out of school, that were able to stay put and complete their secondary school education. Those are part of what we looked at. And we also assessed based on what has changed in terms of the results, their exams results, versus when they start, comparing when they start and now, what has changed. Those are things that we look at. The number of women and girls that we're able to equip with income generating skills, and what has become of them, what are they doing with those skills, and how has their life evolved. Well, these are some of the things that we looked at.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Solomon's project in the Gambia is doing what we call second chance education. So it is something like the alternative education pathways that we are having in Uganda, or return to school basically, but looking at underperforming girls or girls who dropped out and would like to go back into education, or would like to ensure that they actually succeed in their education. And so the impact that would have is a little bit longer term, but you can still assess in the short term, what change are we making to this person who was performing so low that they were in danger of dropping out, or had already dropped out, and they have been able to go back into school and they are going on with their education. Just for the sake of time, I want to say thank you very much to those three for that. And maybe we can just look at the next question a little bit briefly again for all of you. What constraints or problems are experienced or foreseen in collecting impact data? What issues do you have with collecting this data, or what issues can you perhaps see that could happen when you're trying to collect this data? The floor is open to anyone.
Okay, can I come through?
Yes, Tendani.
Thank you very much. With us, I think from the beginning, we were just caught up in wanting to see the project kicked off. And as such, we have missed a critical step of collecting maybe the pre-intervention data that would actually help us to assess the impact that we have made. But I must say, I don't think it's all lost. I think it requires us maybe to be very strategic in whatever tool that we are going to be using in assessing the impact, so that we can maybe have questions that want the participants or the girls to look at where they are from and where they are at that particular moment, so as to help us to assess how much this has really impacted on their lives. But generally, I must say, our missing that critical step would really, we would maybe have more objective data and help us to get a clearer picture than what we would get now, having to make an all-in-one tool.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have maybe two other contributions, and then I speak about all the constraints and problems at once.
Karen?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I
just
think
a
there is an
minute.
issue. Oh, sorry.
I was saying, Wendy, just wait a minute. Salim, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was adding that sometimes it's a challenge when there is a oversampling. Maybe we want to collect data of children who are being sent back to school. For example, for our cases, we have children who drop out and
Salim, you're fading.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I was commenting that some issues may be like oversampling. Maybe we had a target of 50 children who have been sent back to school. But during impact assessment, we are going to collect the data from maybe more than that number that we have had. This could bring a challenge of accuracy in terms of data that we are collecting. And also it can also bring some sort of biasness in terms of the data that we are looking at, because we are required to specifically target the beneficiaries that we have worked with, instead of going to the others who are not part of the program. That could bring a number of accuracy in terms of data. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Wendy, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think something that can affect data is some unforeseen issues that come up. For instance, when you're working with farmers, you foresee maybe seasons, which once upon a time were regular and currently might not be as regular. So for us, maybe we targeted drought-resistant crops because you are trying to ensure that these IGAs, or rather the farm supply, is ongoing even throughout dry season. Then, for instance, the rains become too much, so that will affect the farm output, and therefore affect the data. Because so many people, maybe if farmers wanted to also embrace the carrying of the same exercise to their farms, some of these maybe seeds that you're targeting that maybe it would be a dry season would not do so well. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe just because we are running out of time, I will just wrap up. Jen Rose, you wanted to say something, or is Jen Rose coming on? I think it was because her mic was off. Okay.
Yes.
So Jen Rose, go ahead. No.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. This is Ronald Ricky. I thought you were saying Jane Ruth. Well, at my organization, the constraint of collecting impact data is actually reservation. Some of these beneficiaries, they reserve the information, thinking that the organization will gauge that now they're doing so well and they stop supporting them. Yes, that is my submission.
Okay. That's an interesting one. Yes, so that the person then becomes dependent on the support and does not want to wean themselves off that support, and so may still reflect a need for further training or for further support, because they do not want to lose that. And I think that all of you have raised excellent issues. The first one was that we may not have a baseline, and so therefore, what are we going to then measure impact against? We have talked about oversampling, and we have talked about unforeseen circumstances such as climate change. And all of these, yes, could lead to problems that are experienced on collecting impact data. when we say that perhaps we do not have a baseline, one of the things that in our projects that is very important is, yes, that baseline before you begin all of the activities. But we also say that sometimes that baseline is not entirely possible in what I would call the perfect way. And then it means that when you have a training, for example, you're having women and girls come in for a training, you conduct a pre-survey and a post-survey, as we said in the previous slide. Training, at the beginning of the training, ask them questions about their knowledge, their attitudes, their behavior, that is related to the topic that is going to be taught or to the training that they are going to do. If I'm bringing in a group of women and girls for tailoring, for example, I want to know, has anybody ever stitched a garment on their own? Do they own a sewing machine? Do they know how to use it? What do they feel about working as a tailor? So that I can get their attitudes, I can get their behavior at the end of it, and then I will be able to also assess, did it make any difference? Are they now able to use the sewing machine? Are they able to make a livelihood out of it? Can they stitch up something that can actually be sold? So baseline data is critical at the beginning, but it is also redeemable in terms of getting the information when you are about to conduct your training. In terms of oversampling, Salim, I think that is a really valid point, that many times when we talk about sampling, when we are talking about our sampling frames at the beginning of our contribution agreements, the sampling is sometimes very ambitious. And I think some of the partners know, I've had to tell you, wait a minute, you're trying to get too big of a sample, and this may not be possible in the time that you have and with the resources that you have. And so we dial down our sampling. But if we do continuous assessment of those that we have already sampled, if we do them in little bits, such as like we have sent, if we have sent 50 back into school, how are these 50 doing? And not worry about other, I would call them peripheral beneficiaries, but specifically those that we sampled in the first place, then we might not have that problem of oversampling. We've talked about unforeseen circumstances such as climate change, and I think that is becoming a reality in very many of our projects. You plan one thing, but certain circumstances come in, whether it is a human emergency, whether it is a climate emergency, whatever it is that comes in and then changes what you had expected to experience. And I like Wendy's example. For example, you've tried to plant drought-resistant crops, and the area in which they are in, that was Kenya, has experienced El Nino, and there are floods everywhere. And so farmers will be looking at these drought-resistant crops and thinking, no, we're going to be worse off than we were before. But it is a matter of then re-strategizing and trying to see, these are unforeseen circumstances. The idea was not a bad idea, but what can we do about it? And now this third question is a question for reflection. And I want us to think, how can impact assessment change the planning of outputs and outcomes for the next contribution agreement? We are coming to a place where I know that I have been in contact with most of you telling you, can we start thinking about your next contribution agreement? Can we start having meetings for the next year? Because this is the planning period. And we want to be able to say, what impact are we making? What difference are we making? And how is it going to change our planning of the activities, that is the outputs, for the next contribution agreement? So again, I will welcome some of you to give us your reflections and maybe say, this is what I'm thinking I may need to change, or this is what I'm thinking I may need to strengthen in my next contribution agreement. Any brave soul admitting to the fact that there are changes that need to be made?
Okay. I feel that after review is done, there are strategies that may need to be changed going forward, because it was okay. When we were collecting our data, I would just say for the initial, it seemed like we were overdoing it. We went out to the field, and due to network and so much geographical issues and connection issues, we had to print out all the work to paper and then transfer it to again type it into the system. So I'm feeling like going forward, considering now we know that there are things that are online and can work offline, that can be an area of improvement for us if we have to collect data instead of doing double work. And then in terms of dealing with farmers, instead of just focusing on one strategy of drought-resistant crops, we can work on both, though just to avoid if it's too dry or if it's too wet, which one do we plant? So there needs to be an option depending on the climatical changes. Yeah, I feel like those two can apply. Yeah.
Okay. So just to respond on the sustainable agriculture, you would want to diversify the kinds of crops or inputs that you're trying to say that farmers need to be trained on, so that they're then able to be a little bit more versatile, and therefore their agricultural output and their livelihood will be a little bit more sustainable. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Another contribution? Is there any project that has seen that there are certain things that we did, and in order to be able to measure change, there is something that we need to, adjust, or data that we need, or ways of doing things that we need to change for the next contribution agreement?
Yes, of course.
Yes, Salim.
Dr. Kari, yeah, another contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from our side, it's quite true that the impact assessment will actually change the way we have implemented previous projects in many ways, because during the time we have started the project to the last drop of our work, it's the time that we have learned. The monitoring, evaluation, and learning has brought attention to us that there are some strategies that need to be changed, to be modified. There are some other activities that should completely dropped off from now, because they are no longer valid because of the trend that we've gone through, but also because of the impact that we have already, in order to avoid repetitions, unnecessary repetitions. It will be almost costly for nothing. So I think in the next contribution agreement, there will be some modifications in terms of our strategies and some activities as well. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to say, yes, Tendani, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Karen. I also think there are quite a number of things that we need to change. I'm realizing that this project, like you were saying, this project is not a matter of numbers, but rather a matter of the impact that you are making in changing the lives of the people that we are working with. And from where I stand, I'm now realizing that some of the targets that we set were way too high for us to really manage, more especially that I feel like the project needs dedicated personnel to really see to it being implemented to the best possible ability. And I feel like going forward, or for the next contribution agreement, there are a few things that we would really need to take into consideration or rethink for us to really have an impact in the communities that we serve, than for us to just tick the boxes of achieving the numbers.
Thank you very much. And I believe that all of the contributions have raised something very important, that we are looking, numbers are important and big numbers are important because sometimes that is what organizations, funders want. But at the same time, the lives of the person that we are trying to change, because we emphasize, remember every time we are saying women, girls, persons with disabilities from marginalized communities. So we are looking at this last person who may not have other alternatives, may not be able to reach the training that would be offered perhaps in a college or in a big university, but you're going out into the community and saying, hey, look, we can make a difference that can help you then to have a sustainable life and livelihood. And that impact is what you are trying to talk about, and it is very important. Now, during this year, the Commonwealth of Learning is conducting a midterm evaluation. And the evaluations were done with different partners. YAPO in Tanzania, Salim's organization, was the one that was evaluated. And in that evaluation, we were looking at what are the kind of activities that have been going on over the last 3 years. How important are they and what difference have they made? And we are hoping that when the results of this midterm evaluation come up, then it will be also information that we can share with partners and tell them, there are certain outputs that are working for the initiative. There are others that are not working. How can we strengthen those that are actually going to make a difference? Because we are in a strategic plan that ends in 2027. God willing, we all reach there and we are able to say we have made a difference in the lives of women and girls. And so this strategy that we have in looking at what are your impacts and how are they making a contribution, we need to think about what is it that we did over the past year that perhaps did not help in making that change or making that contribution. Or if you have been with the organization even longer, over the past few years, what is it that has helped or that has not helped? How can we maintain the data while also making a change? How can we go back and ask ourselves, can I point to at least 10% of the people that we have been working with that are now having an improved lives or an improved life or livelihood, that are able to deal with human rights violations, that understand financial literacy, that maybe are in employment or are self-employed? These are the kind of questions that then will help us to determine our activities for the next year. And I also want to maybe wrap up by saying that as much as possible, can we also try to rethink the whole issue of what is the focus of CALL? And the focus of CALL is open and distance learning, using technology to reach people who are unreached, using open and distance education, whether it is trying to ensure that there are materials that are available or trying to ensure that people are computer literate, digital literacy. In terms of an organization like BO is able to offer courses for our women and girls in digital literacy and in agriculture. And I would be very excited to see the Botswana Open University say, hey, look, so long as you're a partner in Girls Inspire Initiative, we can train your women and girls with the same courses. So that kind of focus on getting women and girls to have the kind of education that they require through open and distance learning at whatever level. It's not only through computers. Open and distance learning is a whole range of things, from providing the materials to bringing in teachers, the alternative education pathways, second chance education, online learning, all of these things. Let us always keep them at the back of our minds. How can we get women and girls to get the education they need for the skills or for school subjects so that we can improve their lives? We have gone a little bit over, and I want to thank you. And what I am hoping is that this webinar has made us reflect a little, and that it has made us think about the kind of activities that we are going to go back and reflect on in terms of us an organization. This is not just for CALL. This is for us as organizations. What do we want out of this organization? What do we want this organization to be known for? For people to say that they have made a difference in this community, in the life of this woman or in the life of this girl, in the life of men and boys who are who are trying to change discriminatory norms, what difference can be attributed to our organization, and how can we build upon that strength? So it's not just because of the contribution agreement, but it is because each of your organizations, they are started because you want to make a difference, you want to make a change. And how is this change going to be made? So thank you so much. I want us to end here on the webinar. And I want to thank you all so much for attending, for taking your time, for taking your evenings, your very early mornings. I can see Emily Pioa is in the dark, and she has been here very patient throughout. And I want to thank each and every one of you for having attended, and hope that we will be meeting. Remember, we said that we are changing our meetings to once every 2 months, and that is why you might feel that we have not met for a very long time. So yes, we did skip February, but we are going to make up for it and ensure that we are having our meetings on a regular basis. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon, have a good evening, or have a very good early morning. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes.